Okay, I think we are live. Oh, maybe the volume is a little bit too loud. I haven't really checked the audio level and stuff. But oh, does it share both screens? How do I fix that? Is that okay, sorry. We'll have to mess around a little bit first. So where are the scenes? Show current application. I don't want to show my secondary display. Oh, so I just do primary display, I guess. Yeah. Shouldn't that fix it? Sorry, I'm looking at the actual YouTube stream, which has a... There we go. Great. Yes, eCam live program. Okay, sorry, I just have to set this up. Okay, so I haven't been streaming for a while. It's just because we had a second kid. I was at paternity leave, and I had to make some adjustments. And also we've been working on something pretty cool inside at CodeSandbox, which is finally announced. So now I can actually use it while streaming. And it's called CodeSandbox Projects. I'm going to do... Oh, I see the volume is pretty loud. Let me try to turn it down a little bit. Let's see. Let's try that. Yeah, now it's on yellow. Okay, cool. So yeah, I guess this is a bit of a test stream. Oh, it still goes up to like a high blah. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's try that one. I think that one's good. Okay. So what we're going to do is play around with CodeSandbox projects, but of course we have to play around with some cool project. And I actually created a proof of concept for editing PRs, but I left it alone for a while, and because it's the kind of idea you kind of need to iterate on. And then I had like a second approach to it, and now I've thought of a third approach to it, but I thought I could kind of draw it up first. So the thing is that what inspires me or motivates me to keep iterating on this is because it might be a variation of it, might be a feature in CodeSandbox projects. What it basically is a way to edit PRs. So this is something we're looking at CodeSandbox, is like, what's our current flow? And it's very like, we're exposed to all these low level things. So for example, creating a PR, you have like a bunch of commits, and the commits really tells the story of what you actually want to tell other developers, because when you started the branch and going through the commits, you weren't necessarily exposed to like the final, like you didn't know what the final result was. So you have all these messy commits, and it would just be nice to, like, we think about our workflow as Git, like as if Git enables the workflow somehow, but that's not how it works. Like, we have a workflow where we, like, conceptually we're just adding some code, and the PR represents us telling other developers what we changed in the code. And Git is just a tool that like enables diffing to kind of see what actually changed in that code. And the thing is, like, the way we tell that story of what we try to change is something that can be done way better. Like the diffing experience and all the commits and everything, it's just, to me, it's, yeah, I think we can find something much better. Anyways, so that's what I'm exploring. And the approach I had to this is, it's basically, which is kind of funny. So I didn't want to take it from the perspective of like the full PR, and I didn't want to take it from the perspective of the commits either. Like, it had to be what actually changed. What's the fundamental thing that changed in this PR? And that's files. So the point is you have like these different files that changed during the PR, and then they might have changed like multiple times. So you have like SHA-1, SHA-2. So this file actually changed twice during the PR, in the first commit and the second commit. And then you have another file changed on the third commit. And then maybe this one was deleted on the first commit or something like that. And then when you select a file, what happens is that you actually get the commits as tabs, like this, 3, 2, and then you have like an active tab. Let's see, I'm going to actually put up the comments here in case. How do I put up the comments? There we are. In case there's some bad audio and for some reason someone knows about this and listens in. So the point is that when you click a file, you actually get a list of all the commits as tabs, and then you can look at the state of the file at each commit. So for example, here you might have title awesome, something like that. And then there's an indication like coming from the git diff that this thing was actually changed, like that, or it was added in this case. Yes, and the point is that if you want to, and then of course it indicates if something's deleted, and I also have a concept of change, so it's like yellow when it's the line has been deleted and the same line has an addition. That's like a change. But the point is that what you want to do to retell the story here is to efficiently move these diffs between commits. And that sounds really scary. Like, how can you even do that? Because you can't just shove lines all over the place. But the fundamental concept here is that you have a start. So you have like initial contents, and then you need to end up with the final contents. Exactly how that happens doesn't really matter. The point is that you start with no diffs, and then you end up with all the diffs. And how those diffs are distributed doesn't really matter for the PR itself, because it's the final contents you actually merge. It does mean that you might create, by moving these diffs around, you might create some intermediate states, like intermediate commits that's not valid, like it's not valid code, maybe it won't even run. But I don't care about that. Like the commits is just a low level concept in Git that allows you to split up the story. It's chapters in your story. It's not about it. I want to tell the story. I don't care about the intermediate commits, because it's all connected. The PR is like one big commit where you have like intermediate chapters so that it's easier for people to understand what you were trying to do. And I argue that this happens all the time. Like rarely you have a PR where every single commit is runnable by itself. Even like a green commit is it's not that common, like in the middle of the PR. Always have some linting errors or type errors or whatever. And maybe you are like super disciplined and you always have beautiful PRs, but in practice, I think we can make it better. Anyways, so the point is like, how do you actually move these diffs around? So the initial concept is that, which I actually have a proof of concept on, let's see if we can find it, is that you can actually select the lines that has diffs, and then you just hit left and right, and it actually moves the diff to the next or the previous commit. And the initial concept actually used it's called hunks, funny enough, in Git. So hunks represents like a piece of change. It's the stuff you see between the collapsing stuff on GitHub in a PR. That's a hunk, and you can move those hunks left and right. But that got really complicated in the client, and I didn't conceptually like it. And then what I did next is I rather think about it as lines. So, because that's what you do. You change lines in Git. It's not like changing, even if you change just a piece of text on a line, it's the whole line you're replacing. So you're changing lines, and that makes it more flexible. So you can like select any line you want and then move it to a different commit, left and right. And that's something I refactor now that we can look at. But I want to make it even more flexible because I don't know exactly how is this thing in the middle here going to look. And how would you most efficiently move these diffs around? So I just want to make it super flexible, because the current format of the data coming in here is that you have the commits themselves, which is like a list of the commits, which is just the SHAs and the message on the commit in order, like by date. So that's what makes sure the order is correct here. And then now you also have changes, and these changes are represented by file paths. So you would have like test.json, and then you have what did you have here? Yeah, an array of PR changes. So here you would have yeah, if I remember correctly, you would have like commit SHAs, for example, SHA1, and you would have a type. So if it's like modified, and then you would have added, which is an actual object, and removed is an array. So let me show this. So added means on line, so for example, on line 12, hello. Well, maybe we can represent the one below. So 1 would be space title awesome. That's the actual contents. And then you would also have removed on line 1. So when you have an added that also is removed, that means it's a change. And if it's only added, well, then it's green. And if it's removed, then it's red. So I have logic that builds up this data structure. But I want it to be even more flexible. So, by the way, I'm a little bit tired today. The smallest one had a hard time. Like I had 2 evenings. I went to bed at 9 o'clock to catch up on sleep. And both nights, the youngest just doesn't fall asleep. I'm constantly waking up. Hey, Andras, let me know if the audio is like, I am recalibrating my audio. So let me know if I have some background music as well to kind of set the mood. Anyways, let me know if it's like really bad. Anyways, yeah, so the little one was waking up all the time, so I just can't catch up on that sleep. Where was I? Yeah, a little bit tired, but yes. But one of his waking up, where I'm standing in the bathroom with a hairdryer on to kind of calm him down. He loves that white noise. It hit me that we can structure this a little bit differently to make it even more flexible. Because now I'm created this constraint that I theoretically think needs to be there. And that is that you can only move a diff left or right. But that was in the context that what if you move line 1 to the right, to SHA3, for example. But what if you already have a change there on line 1? What should happen to that change? Should it be overridden? Or what I'm currently doing, I'm moving that line to the next commit. So it's kind of like pushing diffs around, which is kind of cool, but I don't think it's actually necessary. So the way I want to restructure this is that I want to kind of keep the commits there, because that's important to have, well, reference to the commits, their message, and the order of them, which is super important. But instead of having changes like this, I'm actually going to do this, if I can remember this correctly. And I want to actually give line number here. So you would say 1. And let's see. So you would have line 1 would be an array of changes. No. Oh shit, what did I think about? Or was it the commit? No, it was the line, and then was it the commit? So the point is that you can just choose a line and you can assign a new commit SHA to it. That's the flexibility I'm going for. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but it gives the freedom to explore the interactions. Like what would make... awesome, Andras. So it just gives the flexibility to explore the interaction. That's what I want. Like, what would it look like if you could just shove diffs into any commit? Because that's kind of what you want to do. You're looking at some change and you say, no, I want that to be part of that story, like that chapter, meaning that commit. And as I said, like at the end of the day, you won't lose any diffs. They will be there as the final contents. It's just redistributed. Anyways, so we have 1, and then I want to... Okay, let's just write this out. So what if I say that... Yes. So SHA1, and then I can say, if it's a deletion, I could say -1. And if it's an addition, I could say whatever. But then if I want to express a change, that doesn't work, because then I need... fuck! I had this in my head last night. How did I want to structure this? Or was it an array? Was it an array? Yes, it's an array, because that's the thing. Yes. So I believe, so line 1 can have multiple changes across SHAs. But not only across SHAs, because you can think of it as like, as I said, like I might move line 1 to SHA-3, but there's already a change there. But I don't want to actually bump that change further. I just want it to stick in like the history of that SHA. So the way this would work is line 1 would be then, let's see, let's write this out. Maybe we'll stay in Excalibur for the whole session. Let's see. So it needs to represent a commit SHA, which in this case will be SHA1. And then, yeah, maybe it should just be, because I want to, I thought I found, it's kind of the thing why I'm spending so much time on this. Because, yeah, maybe we can just say type here. So it can be like 0 is addition, 1 is deleted, 2 is change. And then if type is like 1, then you would say content, in this case, title, awesome. So let's say, okay, 1 here. But I thought I found a way to, oh! Now I think I remember. Yes, now I think I remember. So it doesn't have a type, it just has content. Yes, now I remember. Yes, this is the nice thing. So if it has content, it's of course an addition, but let's say that you actually change this line. As we can see here, well, it's SHA-2. But what if this was a change? Well, then you would actually have 2 entries here. This actually makes a lot of sense in terms of how I extract the diffs. So this would also be commit SHA-2, but the content here would be -1, right? So what happens in the client? So how does this actually work? So the thing is that we send down all this stuff, and it actually also has initial contents for each file. So test.json would have like maybe it's empty at the beginning. So what the client does is it takes the initial content at the first commit, and then it goes and finds the changes for that file, and then it just filters out all the changes on each line for that commit, SHA-1. And then it applies those diffs on those lines. And then you have your view of SHA-1. And then you move to SHA-2. And then it goes and grabs all the commits before that and applies the changes to the initial contents. And then it highlights what are the actual changes on this SHA. So it's kind of, what can we compare this to? It's like, it's kind of like a database, right? So you have, these databases that's based on transactions. So that's how you can think about it. It's like you have the initial contents, and each diff is like a transaction into the document. And then as long as you have the initial contents and all the transactions, you can like build up the current state of the document at any point in time. And that's the flexibility we want here, is to be able to, in the client, start changing these arrays around. Like what we do is that we basically just choose any line, and then we can just say, change the commit SHA. So when we move between the different SHAs, it has logic that kind of builds up the state of the document and highlights what are the changes on this specific SHA. The thing is that what's going to be interesting to explore here is, what if SHA-1 doesn't have any changes, and then SHA-2 has like 100 lines of changes, and then you choose line 98 and you move that to SHA-1, right? But SHA-1 doesn't have 98 lines. In terms of the final result, it doesn't really matter, because the final result of that file will be 100 lines no matter, because that's what all the diffs ends up being. But I do, like, how would it look like when you clicked SHA-1? It will probably have to like render out empty lines up until line 98. And what I also started reflecting on now is like, what if you move a deletion? So this is the thing that's tricky to think about, is like, can I change the final contents by moving the diffs around? Yeah, I guess I can. Yeah, so, okay, so let's reflect on this one. So, yeah, so all of this thinking is just in my head. So it's hard to identify all the scenarios. But what if you have, so for example, what if SHA-2 has a deletion? What if this was a deletion? And then SHA-3 had an addition. So let's imagine this is like SHA-3, where we first delete the line 1, and then we add line 1 again. But then we move this thing over to that thing. But again, that doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, we're just moving diffs, and while we have eliminated this line now, it won't be there. What's actually being we're just going through the diffs and producing documents. So it is actually, I think it will work. Anyways, let's move to some code. So what we're going to do, we're going to change this format I created. One thing we have to think about is that each of these commits, they are identified, and the file is identified to have a type of change. But what I've also noticed in my latest refactor is that we don't really care about the type of change it is. So for example, in SHA-1, well, let's imagine SHA-3, we actually deleted the file. But if you were to like move, so let's do this again. So SHA-3 might have been deleting the file. But what we, but then suddenly we move this change into SHA-3, which means that the file isn't deleted anymore. But maybe we have to, so that's what I mean to say is that I don't want this edit PR to know any details about, okay, was this an addition of a file? Was it a modified file? Was it a deletion of a file? I just want it to be the file, the diffs, and then you just redistribute it. Of course, then you aren't telling that you actually add the file or delete the file. But maybe that could be, yeah, maybe it needs to have a type here. So type would be, yeah, okay, let's have a type, M or D. Yeah. Well, I guess that's weird because it's on the line. Yeah, that's weird. Well, you know what? What we rather could do is, okay, so let's just explore how the actual commit looks like. So the commit has a commit SHA, like SHA-1. And what we could populate, and it has a message, what up? What we could do is, we could also express changes here. So it would say test.json was an addition, for example. So it keeps a reference to what kind of change it was, so that it does ensure that, yeah, so maybe that could be the limitation. Like you can't, god damn it, because this is like another level of change. One thing is the diffs within the file, but you also have changes to the file itself. Have I ever been in a position on a PR where I have deleted a file and I want to move that to a different commit? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like even this data structure could change that, or could allow changing that. So you could just move like test.json A to like the next commit if you rather want to add it there. The problem is that then you start having this kind of logic like, oh, but what if a SHA-2 had a deletion on that file? What should happen then? And I want to avoid that. I just wanted to manipulate the diffs. We could make a constraint that you can't. Well, the thing is, like, a thing I didn't tell you is that you should also be able to create new commits. You shouldn't just be able to manipulate the ones you have. You can also create completely new chapters in your story. Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm super excited to actually use the tools we've been developing at CodeSandbox. Well, a funny thing is that this is also a tool at CodeSandbox. We have an internal Excalibur, which I'm using here. But yeah, we'll jump into some code shortly. Where was I? Yeah, so you can have like new commit, where you can also put changes. So you have complete freedom. But anyways, back to the types of change to a file. So these are like changes by, well, maybe. Oh, this is interesting. We need a format that can be easily manipulated. So what if we actually did say SHA-1? How would this look like? Oh, sorry. Which means we didn't have to have the SHA there anymore. And then, yeah, okay. So, so we, yeah, and then, okay, this is interesting. God damn it. And then we would rather say like diff. Because what we could do then is we have a diff property here, and then we could say type. So this could be like an addition maybe. So there's a change to test JSON on SHA-1. It's a type of A with the diff, and then it might be on SHA-2. It's M with that diff. And then SHA-3, it's type D, which is a deletion where it doesn't have a diff. Like we can type that, so it doesn't have a diff on D. And then if I were to, so SHA-1A, M, D. So if I were to, okay, so what I want is that, oh shit, I don't want to delete it on SHA-3. I actually want that to just happen on SHA-1, for example. What I would do here, I would basically just go to test JSON SHA-1, and I would change that to a D. The diff would be gone. I don't like this. I don't like this. What I do like is a data structure where we kind of stack the changes. So it's kind of like it's like an undo thing. So what if every set of changes to a file was related to, okay, so test.json has a change on SHA-1, and this is that change. Now, if I were to move the deletion, okay, this is interesting. So if I were to delete that file on SHA-3, and I would say, no, I want that to happen on SHA-1. What I would basically do, I wouldn't, yeah, this is the thing, like what's the approach of the data structure? So what I'm thinking here is that it's a non-deletion data structure, so that all changes are actually like copied and applied on top. So if I were to move the deletion from SHA-3 to SHA-1, I wouldn't change SHA-3, it would be the same, but I would add type D here, right? So when I now so this changes the whole data structure in React, and React renders out the view again. And what it would show now is that SHA-1 is actually deleted. And as I go to SHA-2, it would first render out SHA-1, it would see that it's deleted, and it wouldn't continue like rendering out this thing. But if I were to look at SHA-1 and then I would say, no, the history changes of SHA-1 has like this deletion, I just pop that off there. I don't want that to be there. I would just remove that, and then it will render out the correct view again. Yes, I like this. So that's the approach. We create a history for every commit. where the first content of the commit is based on the diff from Git, and then any change to this structure is adding to the history of each commit, and also creating new commits with their own history. And then whenever we render out the contents of the document and the tabs and everything, it will just go through these changes. Yes. And now we have the SHA there, we have the type there. Yeah, did I put that on the right spot, by the way? Like here, yeah, I did type it here. Yeah, it will be a deletion. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's try to write this. Let's change this. And I even have tests and stuff. That's pretty nice. Okay, so let's go to CodeSandbox.io. Like I have a link here on my homepage, but yeah, so this is the dashboard, and I think, yeah, and this is also so nice. Like here, this is a thing I'm always missing. So this is what I love about what we're doing with CodeSandbox Projects. We're kind of fixing these tiny things that annoys you all the time, but you're just so used to it. So for example, one thing that really annoys me, or that I have discovered annoys me, now that I'm able to use CodeSandbox Projects, is that whenever I'm going to work on something, I have to flip through all the windows in VS Code. Like where the hell is this thing I was working on? What was the branch name? And if it's not there, I have to like go to VS Code. I have to find the project, and then I have to check like what is the branch. I have to do like git status. There's so much work to just find your previous work. While here you just have recent branches, and I know that, okay, the project is edit PR, and then I don't have to think about the branch name because this is the branch name I previously worked on. Like this kind of stuff, what I explain now, is so difficult to explain to people. Why is CodeSandbox Projects awesome? This little thing creates a ton of value, at least for me. And we have like hundreds of these little things that improves the workflow. Anyways, I'll stop selling it. So with this project, this proof of concept, I'm just using the code editor. I'm not using VS Code, and it's just because I don't know, I just like working in it. And then let's see here on test watch. And then, but when I do like debugging or especially implementing bigger features, I use VS Code. But let's first take a look at the thing we were going to do here. Let's write the typing for this. Like I'm happy about the approach. Let's write the typing, and I have this. I just call it a utility now. It would maybe even be its own package at some point. But what we need to do is PR data. That's the thing we have, and how are we going to structure this? I guess we didn't need this one. I can remove that. So this is the same. It's commit SHA message. That's something I already have. So PR commit is commit SHA message. We have initial file contents, and then we have the changes, and that's where we're going to do things a bit differently. So we have file name. Oh, it's actually quite similar. We have the SHA, and then we actually have a PR change, but we want that to be an array, right? We want this to represent a history for changes to that file on that commit SHA. And then each of the items has a type, and it has a diff. But what I'm but where's the line? I forgot about the line. Yeah, so okay, sorry. So actually this diff needs to be based on line. So that would be like line 1, sorry. But what's cool now is that we can actually say line 1 is first has a deletion, and then it has title, oh sorry, title awesome. Yes, so that's the history of that that SHA, is that we added the test.json file, and we had a change to well, this looks a little bit weird, maybe we should do, yeah, so this doesn't really represent, like we would need the curly braces and stuff, but you kind of get the idea. Or maybe we could actually represent this. So it would be, so let's imagine that's the actual representation. So line 1, so it's not index based here. So this is SHA-1, and then we would have, so let's just go to SHA-2. SHA-2 also has a history of changes, but this is, the type here is a modification. That's like the initial representation coming from Git, where the diff is, so line 1 is still the same, but I believe Git would represent this as line 2. No, sorry. So line 1 would actually be deleted, and then it would add just a curly brace and like a line change, but I'm not going to represent that here. Well, let's do that. So it would look something like that. And then line 2 would have an addition of, oh my god, I really like this. Oh, god damn it. Title, awesome. And then line 3, and it would also have like a line break. And then line 3 would be the curly brace thingy. And it might have a line change there as well. Doesn't matter. Yes. So, okay, so let's kind of retry the logic here. So what if we wanted to kind of just shove SHA-2 into SHA-1? Well, what we would do is that we would just take this thing and we would make a copy of it, and we would shove it into this thing. So we take the whole copy, move it in there, and when it runs the logic, it will first like run this, and then it will run this copy of the representation on top of that. So it would actually be, yeah, it's interesting. Like, would you still show it as added, or would you show it as modified? Yeah, so it needs some custom logic related to that, I think. But that's perfectly fine. The most important thing is to be able to go through all the changes. No matter, it would show SHA-1 as having these changes, and SHA-2 would just be empty. Like the array on SHA-2 is empty, which means that there is no changes to test.json on SHA-2. And what can happen is that you get into a commit SHA that doesn't have any changes on any files, which means that that's like a SHA we don't care about anymore. Okay. So let's represent this. So the PR change. Yes. So if it's added, let's create a PR change diff or something. So it's actually the thing here now is that we're going to use like the line number, and then it can be an array of like -1 or string. It's a little bit weird, but that's the way it is. Can it have more than? Oh, this is interesting. No, we have to represent it like that. Yeah, so this is what annoys me with representing a change. It's these arrays. We could type it as, it can either be a string, it can be -1, or it can be a tuple of -1 and a string. Maybe that's a better way to do it. Because now we're actually not going to manipulate that. Like previously, we were actually manipulating the lines, but we're not going to do that anymore. We're actually going to move, like make copies of the contents of the line. Yeah, I guess one thing that's going to be quite heavy for the client is that if you have like tons of lines, like say you add 500 lines and then you move that to a different, yeah, there's a bit of iteration going on, but it's only on the client, and I think it will be just fine. Yeah. Or you can do like optimizations by splitting up the iterations and stuff. I think it's easy to optimize. Okay, but let's try representing. You have a line. If it's a string, it's an addition. If it's -1, it's just a deletion. Or if it's -1 and a string tuple, it means it's a change. And just to reiterate this, so if I were to, I want to move, okay, so one thing is like moving everything. Like I want to move all that happened on SHA-2 to SHA-1. Then we just take the whole thing and we, oh yeah, that's interesting, because maybe, yeah, that is interesting. Like, do we actually move the whole object over to SHA-1, or do we just take the diffs? Oh yeah, how did I want to do this? Okay, to put it in other words, if I want to move line 1 to SHA-1, what do I do then? Do I create a new, yeah, I have to create a new entry, which is of type modified, which only holds that one thing. Yeah, because the thing is like you are also able to like select multiple lines on a SHA and then move that over. Yeah, this is perfect. And then we actually create a brand new entry, which has a type, which has the set of diffs that you applied. Yeah, oh, this is going to be awesome. Like it's a little bit computationally heavy, but like clients are fast. That's where the computation power, it's typically better there than on the server anyways. Yes. Cool. So we do want to represent it this way because it will only be a representation of this. We're not going to add stuff to this array. It just expresses a change. And then we can remove this, and we will rather say that if it's added, we can have a PR change diff. And we can also have it when it's modified. If it's deleted, we don't have a diff. Cool. Okay. Well, this is gonna be fun. Okay. And we have our tests here. And I think we should just comment out everything. By the way, I think you can actually see the, do I have the, yeah, I haven't. Oh, I should actually new task. Can I just do yarn dev, run and save yarn dev? Oh my god, this is beautiful. Yeah, so you can kind of see the this is where how it looks like. Now this is running some old logic, but you can this is actually grabbing information from from the branch I'm working on. So you can see that we have a modification on this file, and you can see that I just added these comments, which is kind of funny. But it's based on a completely different data structure. So we're going to improve this. But yeah, then you got a sense of how it's going to look. So what we want to do is we want to change the way the parse diff works, so that we rather, yeah, so I have some fixtures here. It's basically initial doc. We have a diff A and a diff B, and it kind of gives us something to work on. And yeah, so what we can do first, we can change how this is represented. So we have a commit SHA that needs to be yes, so here we have a diff of nothing, and then again we have an array. Oh, I love that I come to the conclusion of making it an array like history. Diff. Nice. Parse diff, diff A. But PR server, how do you do this now? Now, why does it allow that? It should have failed, shouldn't it? Type diff. Oh, yeah, because it's a line number. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it can be a string or, yeah, kind of funny. So what we want to do here instead, we want to say, oh, no, that's okay. So what we want to have the diff here, and this is like PR change diff. Yeah, so the editor, the project editor in the browser does have an IntelliSense, as you can see, but it's not quite up to par with VS Code. But that's the thing, like if you need the best possible IntelliSense experience related to what you're doing, then just jump into VS Code and continue from there. But for me, I'm perfectly okay with change diff. So we are going to, so this is where here I get this weird diff string, the thingy you see here, and then I'm using a library called diff to actually produce these hunks. And then if the line is a plus, we are first going to check, well, current new line. So what might be here is that we already have a removal of this line. So we have to check. So if we already have something there, we are going to do this and line.slice 1. If not, we're just going to do line.slice of 1. Okay. Why are you complaining about that? Goddamn typing. I said string or -1 or... Why does it say... Why is it complaining about that? Okay, so what if maybe I have to be very explicit. So if it's a type of... Oh. Line content. think TypeScript has an issue with there we go. Yeah, it's so sad that TypeScript isn't able to infer, like when you reference like this, you have to be very specific. Okay, so the thing is, like when it goes through the diff, it produces the deletions first, and then possibly an addition on the same line as the deletion, which means it's a change, which means we need it to be an array. And then if it's a deletion, we can just add it as a -1. And then if it's, yeah, exactly. So this is how, current line. This is how it will build up the change div. And then we'll return PR change div like that. So now our test should start giving us something. You can see that. Line 2 is an array where it removed. And so let's look at our fixture. So what happened is our line 2 first had a deletion, then an addition, and then 3 also had an addition. This is perfect, so we just have to change our test. So we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. That's going to change it a little bit, but this one was actually a deletion first. -1. And there it's green. Magic. Okay, I guess this was a lot of theory. By the way, what happened to my music? Anyways, this was a lot of theory. So we'll stop there. But yeah, this got me excited. So we're going to continue doing this maybe already tomorrow. And our next step then will be, well, to basically go through the tests. So it has functions for writing the documents based on the changes and everything. And we need to start playing around with how we make changes here. But the logic is way simpler now. It's so much simpler to think about this as just adding changes to the existing stuff, and you can just pop off the stack. And then it will produce, like, again, at the end of the day, maybe like the interactions here will be super confusing. But I have a feeling like when you start just clicking through the different commits, telling the story of that file, it will make sense to you. And you will love having the flexibility. Yeah, hello, Julian. Yeah, I'm stopping now. But yeah, okay. Thanks for following along. And I'll also tweet the next time I'll do this one. And then we'll see where we end up. Cool. Bye.